Hello and welcome to Module 13, Attackers and Their Tools. So in this section, we are going to cover who is attacking the network. So we're going to go through all the different definitions and names of different types of attackers and different types of attacks, and what tools do they use, these threat actors and so on. So mostly a lot of definitions in this chapter. So please take your notes and upload them when we're done with the lecture. All right, so let's begin with threat, vulnerability, and risk. So what is the difference between them? So please take a picture of this. So a threat is a potential danger that you have. So if you have, for example, an analogy to that, if you have your car alone in the parking lot and there's no light, and or the door in your office is open, and somebody can sneak in, so that is a threat. Um, there's a potential danger. Vulnerability is there's a weakness. So, for example, maybe the door doesn't lock, so that's a vulnerability. Attack surface is all the different types of vulnerabilities that has on your laptop. Maybe the door is open, or the door doesn't close. There's a lot of people walking in the hallway. So all of these are different types of vulnerabilities, and that together they are called an attack surface. Exploit is when someone takes advantage of this vulnerability, exploits it, and breaks into the network. The risk is the likelihood that something might happen. But if you are at home and the door doesn't lock, and there's a lot of people in your house, there are family members, so the likelihood is really zero. But if you are, for example, in a public place, the risk is very high. So please take a picture of these so at least you know the difference between them. Then you got to do, the risk management comes into play. Again, take a screenshot of this as well. The risk acceptance means you accept the risk, whatever the risk is, whatever might happen to my laptop, computer, or data, doesn't really matter. It's not that important. Risk avoidance, meaning avoiding or exposing or any exposure to the risk. So maybe move your computer or laptop. Don't place it where it could be stolen, for example, right? Risk reduction is taking taking steps in to mitigate and make sure that it makes it harder for the attacker to steal your data or steal your actual laptop. You can lock down, chain the computer down, or lock it down with a key lock. Make sure you have, for example, encrypt your data when your computer is at rest, and things like that. So you're reducing the risk of that data might be stolen. Or risk transfer. So if you have a lot of stuff and it might cost you a lot of money to do a lot of the security steps that you need to mitigate the problems. So what you do is you buy insurance, for example. That's called risk transfer. So if anything happens, insurance will pick it up. All right, so countermeasures is action. Please take these two also definitions down, the countermeasure and the impact, and I think they are self-explanatory. So countermeasure is action that you take to mitigate the problem, the threat, or reducing the risk. So what you do is you could be a pen tester, penetration tester, an ethical hacker, so you can figure out where the loopholes are. And then once you find out where the problems might be, where the security loopholes are, then you do a countermeasure. You take actions into plugging in these loopholes and make sure you reduce the risk. Make sure no one will be able to steal your data or steal your laptop. And you got to think about what the impact is. If somebody steals your data, what is the impact, the damage that might have on the organization? If somebody takes your laptop, what is the impact? So you got to take that into consideration. All right, so a hacker. So let's take a look at the definition between hackers and sometimes we call them threat actors. So there are white hackers, gray hat hackers, and there is the black hackers. Um, so let's start. You need to take a definition of each one of those: the white, the gray, and the black. White hackers are ethical hackers. They are the ones that use their skills to figure out where the problems are, what the black hat hackers are using to break into their networks. So they are doing it for the goodwill of the organizations. We're trying to find out where the loopholes are. So he's working for the organizations. He's trying to protect the company. He wants to find out where the security loopholes are, where the vulnerabilities are, and try to mitigate against them. Gray hat hackers are the individuals who commit crimes and do unethical things, but not necessarily just to gain not for personal gain or to cause damage, just to embarrass maybe the government. Maybe they're doing it to expose some people, or just for the sake of being fun. So they may break into a companies and let everybody know that we were able to break into so and so company and have access to their data, just to expose their weakness or things like that. So those are called gray hat hackers. The difference between gray hat and black hat: gray hat, they may do unethical, but not necessarily, even though there's a borderline, they're not necessarily illegal. But black hat hackers will do unethical and illegal, and most likely illegal, illegal actions. So, black hat hackers are the ones that break into your network, break into your computers, install viruses, damage your computers, or steal data, and then hold you hostage, and they will ask for monetary gain. They're asking for money, right, for personal gain. They're doing it for personal gains. So you, as a white hat hackers, you want to be able to protect against gray hat and black hats. Okay, so these threat actors, the hackers, are, since they started from the 1960s with phone phreaking. They're cracking the phone and being able to make free phone calls till today's, using exploit kits and buying one wire off the internet, and you don't even have to have any technical skills to break into any network. All right, again, write these definitions down for all of these different actors. Threat actors, you got the script kiddies, somebody that has no experience whatsoever, and just by click of a mouse click, you'll be able to launch an attack. You may purchase an exploit kit, and just with a couple of hits, a couple of mouse clicks or on the keyboard, executing the program, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to have any technical experience whatsoever. Vulnerability brokers are the gray hat hackers. This is the ones that are the gray hat guys, who are attempt to discover and exploit loopholes, security loopholes, vulnerabilities, and just expose them to everybody else. All right, and maybe they're just doing it for prizes or rewards, but they actually don't even need money. They're just doing it for their own ego, maybe. Hacktivists are the ones that also gray hat hackers who rely on protest against different political and social ideas. So the hacktivists are definitely a gray hat hackers. Then you got the cyber criminal. These are black hat guys. And so is the state sponsored. They are considered to be, as far as I'm concerned, also black hat. Cyber criminals are the ones that are the threat actors who motivated to make money. So these are the people that you want to be able to stay away from. All right. So under cyber criminals, these is definite cyber criminals. You are definitely going to, um, you are going to definitely be able to protect against them. Okay, so please, under cyber criminals, write down all of these that you see right here. They're trying to do fraud, identity theft. They are the ones that launch viruses, codes, scams, password crackers. They are the ones that install spyware. So write these down so you'll know that these are cyber criminals. These are the ones that you are going to protect against. All right, so cybersecurity test, what you are going to uh, do. So threat actors target home users, small to medium-sized businesses, as well as large but public or private organizations. So they are shared. Cybersecurity is shared responsibilities by everyone. So cybersecurity checklist. Make sure that you please write these down. So this is what you're going to do. These are your tasks to protect your network. Make sure you buy your products from a trustworthy IT vendor. Security software must be up to date. Regular penetration testing. Check to make sure everything that is up to date in terms. Check to see if there's any vulnerabilities in your network. Back up to the cloud and so on. So write these down. These are the tasks that you need to take as a cybersecurity IT professional. All right. So all of these, you have to be enforce the use of strong passwords. You could do that within the creating a security objects within Windows. You could do that. Two-factor authentications, you got to implement that as well. Have a security policy up to date and make sure that it is enforced. Periodically change the Wi-Fi password. Giving enough time, you'll be able to break into the Wi-Fi with an exploit kit if it's weak, if it's not long enough. All right. So and make sure you back up your data as well. All right. Indicators of compromise, IOC. Again, right, the first bullet point. IOCs are the, what are the evidence that the attack has occurred? So you want to be able to see that there is a malware on your computer, or somebody broke into and stole your data, made copies, or something has been altered, right? Somebody captured your data. You have to be able to detect that there is an attack. That's called an indicator of compromise. Indicators of attack, it's really the same thing as indicators of a compromise. It's just different definitions. It focuses more on, but this one focuses on the motivations and the strategy behind the attack. Why are they trying to steal our data? What's their purpose? What do they want? And how did they get how did they get in there? What did they use? Did they compromise the firewall? That's an indicator of attack. So please write that down. I think it's important to differentiate between that and the indicators of from the previous one, the indicators of compromise. If somebody put a malware, you want to be able to recognize it. But if somebody, you want to know why they're doing it and how did they use it? What exploit kits did they use to break into a network? That's what an indicator of an attack is. All right. So make sure you can differentiate between an IOA and IOC, between an IOA, indicator of attack, and an IOC, indicator of compromise. Now, threat sharing and different types of attacks that happens constantly, periodically, every day, they are shared around the world. So even the United States governments are now actively promoting and sharing data about cybersecurity attacks and how to mitigate against them. So please write down these 4 bullet points. You got the Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, that's the one that leads the efforts to automate the sharing of cybersecurity information to the public and private organizations. And of course, it's free. Then you got, they use a system called the AIS, the Automated Indicator Sharing. This enables the sharing of the attack between the US government and the private sector. The Europeans also use the ENISA, that does pretty much the same thing. The CISA and the National Security Alliance, they have annual campaigns every October. They do that. And in 2019, they had, this was their campaign. This is like a conference that they have. So they provide capital through social medias, updating privacy settings, and so on. This is just, I don't think there was a conference. I don't remember reading about it, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so let's now take a look at the tools that these threat actors use. In the 1980s, in the early 90s, you really have to be an expert. What a real hacker meant at that time is somebody that can read the codes in a computer programming, find where the vulnerability is, and use that vulnerability to exploit that program and break into, let's say, a program or bypass the authentication of the username and passwords or whatever. But you really had to be a computer scientist. That's what really a real hacker meant. Nowadays, a technical, you don't have to really have any knowledge whatsoever to break into a network. You can purchase exploit kits to do anything for you, from password crackers to Wi-Fi crackers to stealing, compromising keys, and so on. So you name it, you can almost do anything that you want. A lot of these tools are, though, in Unix and Linux based. Because remember, Unix and Linux are open source operating system, and there is a lot of experts that can create exploit kits using them. So that's where you find a lot of the ethical hacking. So please take a screenshot of this. These are the different tools that they use. You got password crackers. And what's important when you're reading this, by the way, so if you want, let's say you are an ethical hacker and you want to use password cracker, you look for programs such as John the Ripper or OPH Crack. If you want to use wireless hacking tools, so you may use AirCrack NG or Kismet. Oh, a lot of these tools, by the way, in Linux operating system called Kali, and those have all of these different types of tools that allow you to practice and use these ethical hacking tools, for example, to break into a wireless LAN. Network scanning tools, you got Nmap. This is a very, very powerful. If you type in Nmap to nmap.org, this will, for example, you can use Nmap to find out where the vulnerabilities, what ports are open, and does port scanning for you to find out what port is open on the system. It scans a whole network and see which device is vulnerable and what ports are open, so you can send data through it, for example. Packet crafting tools. You have HPing and Skype. HPing is also a very powerful tool that is being used. They can test the firewall to see what vulnerabilities and what packets are being permitted or denied on the firewall. Packet sniffers are like Wireshark, for example, right? That eavesdrops on the data that's traversing the network, right? So if you have any data that's traversing the networks unencrypted, you'll be able to see it. Then you got rootkit detector. This is to check to see if this is mainly used for white hat, to detect if there's any rootkits that's being installed on your system. Rootkits are very, very difficult malwares to detect. So some of these tools, AID and NetFilter, will be able to see if they are installed on your system, because usually they hide and they erase themselves if there's an attack. and they try to get rid of themselves as quickly as possible. Then you got buzzers to search for vulnerabilities. This is used by threat actors to discover computer systems vulnerabilities. Then you got WAPT and SkipFish. You can, a lot of these vulnerabilities, you can use vulnerability scanners. Okay, again, take another screenshot of this. Then you got the forensic tools. You got the Helix and the Sleuth Kit. These hackers use these tools to sniff out any trace of evidence existing in a particular computer system. Then you got the debuggers. Black hats will use the debuggers to reverse engineer the binary files, and they can actually take a program that is used and they go all the way to the binary program, the codes itself, and try to reverse it and find out where you can slide in, have a malware and not being detected. Hack operating systems, like I said earlier, Kali Linux is the most widely used, and it has almost every exploit kits that is available, and the utilities and tools that you can, Nmap is in there. Then you got and a lot of them are GUI based too, so you don't even have to remember commands. Encryption tools, this will help you to encrypt your data. And a lot of these are free, by the way. A lot of these exploit kits, and they can be found on the internet. Vulnerability exploiting tools. You got Metasploit. In Kali Linux, Metasploit is used extensively to break into networks, or not only find out. This is mainly to break into networks after you found out there's a vulnerability. You may use Nmap, for example, to scan and find out a loophole where the port, where a certain application has the port open, and then you may use Metasploit to exploit that vulnerability, and then break into a network using that open port. Then you got vulnerability scanners. Vulnerability scanners such as NNIPR, and there is the OpenVAP. This is an open source vulnerability scanners. This is going to scan the network to identify any open ports. It'll let you know. Nmap can do that too, by the way. So, but these these exploit kits, these utilities such as NIPR or Secura PSI, it will not only scan your computers, but any device that you really have, your phones and Linux machines and so on. All right, the categories of attacks, the three different categories. You got eavesdropping attack, people watching your data as it traverses the network. Then you got the data modification. Again, take a picture of this. Again, like I told you, this chapter is all about really mostly definitions. So this way, when we mention them, as we move down the road, you'll be able to easily understand what's going on. All right, anyway. So you got the eavesdropping attack. That is an attack that is monitors and being able to watch the data as it traverses the network. You can use, maybe Wireshark to do that. Data modification is being able to alter the data that you have captured and send it on its way. IP address spoofing attack is using someone else's IP address to pretend to be someone else. Maybe you want to use that IP. Maybe you found out that the firewall is permitting a specific IP address, and so you may spoof that IP address so you can go right through the firewall, right? Then you got again, take a picture of this too. Password-based attack. This one is, getting your password. So this is very, very important. Over 50% of the attacks are password-based. Because if you get the password, you're in. You don't need to do anything else. You don't need to do scanning, and you make your life much, much easier. If somebody uses a weak password, or they type their passwords anywhere, they don't care on public computers, or leave their computers on when they and walk away, so somebody can put in a keylogger on their system. So they want to be able to get their password. Denial of service attack is when somebody, for example, sends a lot of requests to a server to deny legitimate people from accessing that server, or having a frequency jammer, so you can't access and increase the power on that frequency jammer on a 5 gigahertz, so that will wireless network, you will not have access to your wireless network. Man in the middle attack is having a device or maybe a software in between you and the destination, the sender and the destination, and being able to capture all that data. You wouldn't even know that there's a man in the middle. It could be a device between you and your access point, for example. Compromised key attack is somebody being able to have your key, the key that you use to encrypt the data. Okay? So if you got the key, this is like getting your password, then you'll be able to authenticate into the network. Sniffer attack is, again, being able to see the data that is traversing the network, right? A sniffer, that's what Wireshark is. All right, that's it for this chapter. So please write down, I hope you wrote down all the things that I asked you to, and upload them, and I will see you on the next module.